Hi, welcome to the show, everybody. My name is DJ BluePDX, and this is the CLX Gaming Foundry live show. We are back from a weekend at PAX West, and of course, joining us right now. Good grief, there we go. Joining me right now, of course, our lead technical expert, Paul Steffens, and master builder, Christian Garrett. Hello, guys.
Hello.
Turning red. Well, I'll tell you what, missing marks and figuring things out. It's been a day. So we had a wonderful weekend over in Seattle, Washington at the Washington State Convention Center. PAX West happened. CLX was part of Intel Gamer Days. We had an incredible time. Lots of different things were played. Lots of different people in the booth, and the booth looked astounding. Nicole did an incredible job setting up that booth. We're gonna have pictures and video coming up next week. Gotta have time to breathe, sleep, and then edit. That is what needs to happen in that order. And of course, we had so many different people there. George and Nicole were there. Ivory was there, who was unfortunately homesick today. So yeah, lots of fun stuff. Lots of great things to see. Intel had their ARC graphics there, which was wild to experience. They had it in a little nook. It was great. There was a lot of different things. We got a chance to talk with the folks over at Glorious. We got a chance to talk with the folks over at ViewSonic. And of course, we got to talk to the people at ASUS. Apparently, I've been saying it wrong this entire time. Did you know that ASUS has a liquid-cooled 3080 Ti? It's a 240. I had no idea that was even possible. It was wild. It was wild. So today we're going to be starting with a build for Tyler in Texas. I'm wondering if he lives in Tyler, Texas. And yes, there is a show in Tyler, Texas. Yo, Rowdy JTV, hello, how are you? So yeah, Rowdy Rogan actually was in our streaming booth, so that was a lot of fun. He's hilarious. We had JSG, Drake, and I were there, and looks like the question in chat was, have you chosen a winner yet for the PC? And it looks like they are waiting for a response from the winner, which is great. We had an incredible build that came out that we did last week for 2 weeks ago for this last weekend's giveaway, which was awesome. But let's start off with talking about what we're going to be doing today. We've got a pretty interesting build. I'm going to call this the Dark Knight build because, ironically, this is without any LEDs at all. This is very, very much a dark box. It's interesting. So let's talk about what we're going to be putting into it, guys.
Yeah, this one should be pretty cool. I'm excited to see one that's all blacked out. I think it'll be pretty cool. So we'll run through the parts real quick and then we'll get started. So starting off for the processor, we've got a Ryzen 5 5600G. We are going to be putting our FLUXX thermal paste on that, so we'll show that a little later. Cooling the CPU, we've got a 120 Acetec cooler.
Nice.
And for our motherboard, we're going to be using an ASRock B550M AC.
Awesome. I have an ASRock in my gaming PC, so this should be interesting.
Cool. And for our memory, we've got 2 sticks of Patriot 16 gig 3200, so it's going to give us a total of 32 gigs of RAM here. Black heat spreaders on theirs as well, keeping with the theme. And for our OS drive, our main drive, we've got a Kingston 1 terabyte NV1 M.2.
All right, there we go.
For our video card, we've got a Gigabyte Eagle RTX 3060. And powering
so much power in that card.
We've got the EVGA 750 GM. This is an SFX power supply. It's a small form factor. We can get into that a little bit later as well.
Okay.
And for our case fans, we've got 7 black fans. And our case.
Nice. So now this is our mid-core.
Right, yeah, this is a Scarab. So it'll be smaller, and this is the O11 Mini in black. We do have this in white as well. So yeah, I'll start getting the case apart, and Christian can start building the board, and we'll get going.
Just as a reminder, if anybody in chat has any questions they'd like to ask about not only the build, but also about the parts we might be using, or if you hear a term that you're not necessarily familiar with, let us know. We'll be more than happy to answer those questions. That's why we do this, and that's why we're here. And Rowdy JTV, of course, that's your little brother, is little Roddy Rogan. That guy's full of energy, lots of fun. Trickster TTV, hello, welcome. Good to have you all here. So let's talk a little bit about this. We're going to get the, as usual, we go through some standard steps in the beginning, which I've always found interesting. Christian's going to start by building the board, and that means putting on the CPU, the RAM, and anything else that plugs into the board. Did I miss anything there, Christian?
Like to get my retention kit for my all-in-one cooler as well. So that, and also the M.2, if the build comes with the M.2.
Gotcha. And Trickster wants to know about questions about the about the Modern Warfare 2022 giveaway. You are more than welcome to throw this in chat. Nicole will know more about that than I will. So, but we'll definitely be able to get you an answer. So yeah, fire away. Now, you mentioned a retention kit, which is, I've noticed you put them on, but I didn't know what they were. I'm glad that you mentioned it because I'm kind of unfamiliar about what those do. Can you describe what a retention kit does for the AIO?
Yeah, all it does is that's what attaches your all-in-one cooler. Sorry.
Here.
This is get a shot here. So your retention kit is what will attach onto the motherboard over here. You'll have this bracket here that goes onto the pump right there. And you have these screws, they'll go onto pegs right here. And let's see.
Nice.
Probably the big thing with the retention kits is it depends on which CPU socket you have. So obviously for this we have AM4, so we're using an AM4 socket. Your AIO is going to come with AM4, 1700, 115X, 2066, pretty much everything that's current.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the AM4 sockets are for the 3000, the 4000G, the 5000 and 5000G series processors, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
What I'm not familiar with is the difference between, say, the 5000 and the 5000G series processor. What makes those two different?
Yeah. So the G is the difference there, obviously, and what that means is the G is going to have onboard graphics. So. You wouldn't necessarily need a video card for this to work. If you are going to go that route and use onboard graphics on your CPU, you do want to make sure you have a motherboard that has video outputs, because there are motherboards that don't, and then obviously you want to have anything to plug your monitor into. So, which
I always find interesting when I come across PCs that don't have an HDMI out. Just in case you have a problem with your graphics card, you're kind of screwed getting it back in there.
Right, yeah.
That's what I've always noticed. Speaking of which, this motherboard, so it's an AM4 socket, supports DDR4 up to 4733. I believe that's for overclocking. That's a pretty random number.
That is. I've never seen RAM at 4733. Have you, Christian?
No, I have not.
Yeah.
So, like DJ said, it's kind of a random number.
Right, yeah. Something like 4733. Sure, is that a house number? It does have one PCI 4.0 16, a 3.0 by 16, and then a 3.0 by 1. So PCIe 3.0 by 1. What does that mean?
So that's going to refer to our slot that's in the middle there. If maybe we can go to the overhead shot real quick, Jason. We can probably show that a little better. So right under this M.2 drive, we've got this skinny little slot right here, and that's our by 1. The by 1 and by 16, that's going to refer to your lengths. There's by 1, by 4, by 8, and by 16. But you're pretty much only going to see by 1 and by 16.
Gotcha. Alrighty. And this thing also obviously comes with 7.1 channel HD audio from Realtek. They kind of are the name of the game. And of course, that's being augmented by the Nahimic audio software, so that you get that full immersive 7.1 channel. That's great. This has a couple different ways to hook up hard drives. You can hook up to 4 different SATA 3 hard drives in one Hyper M.2 on it, which is great. And I believe that's what we're using for the hard drive, correct?
Yeah, this just has one M.2 drive, which is pretty cool in my opinion, and it is going to be in a hyper slot.
Okay.
So that's nice.
We do have quite a bit of access points here. You know, peripherals are so important to gamers, to content creators, to people who work in design. Kind of important all the way around the board. And this seems to have quite a few. We've got 8 USB 3.2 Gen 1s. I believe we got 4 in the front and 4 in the rear. How many are on the case itself?
So the case itself, we've got one Type-C up top. That'll be right here, and then we've got two 3.0s as well, with a headphone / mic jack as well.
Great, awesome. And then I did notice that there's on top of that also the option for 6 USB 2.0s, 2 rear, 4 front, or however you want to align those. Which that would mean that if Tyler wanted to add another USB card, there's plenty of room for it.
That's right. Yep.
Okay. Awesome.
Yep. There'll be plenty of headers on the board for him to plug that into.
And interestingly enough, this board also has built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that I really like about a lot of motherboards now is coming just with that onboard. You mind if I grab that board real quick, Christian? So what that onboard is going to do, let's see if we can get it in here. So right under our M.2 drive here, we have this M.2 Wi-Fi. Now this is an M.2 Wi-Fi slot. I know I don't have this centered right, but there we go. So we've got an M.2 Wi-Fi slot and a Hyper M.2 slot. Those two M.2 slots are keyed differently. They won't look like it from looking at it, but once you try to put the card in there, like we couldn't put the SSD in there. But anyways, the onboard just means it comes from the factory with this card pre-installed. Antennas are run out the I/O right here.
Gotcha. So that means it's going to have antenna mounts on the back of the that large.
Yep, it comes pre-done, and we really like that. Sometimes we have gotten some that don't come pre-done. They just throw in the M.2 card and the antennas, and getting those antennas on the M.2 card are one of the most difficult things I've ever done building a PC. So thank you, board manufacturers, for installing those.
That is good news to hear. I do notice now down in the far corner, we've obviously got our heat dispersion plate over the I/O, and then on that far corner, I see another small, what looks like a heat sink. Is that right, or is it just a tag?
Yeah, it is a heat sink. So we've got a small one on this board for the south bridge there, just held on by a couple clips and some springs. But yeah.
And those, of course, are always important in keeping keeping the motherboard as cool as possible, given how much is on top of it. So.
And they always make them look really cool with like fins cut into them, and it's really not just for looks. It does help air get in between that and cool it off.
Speaking of this is going to be, now we are going to get a full 32 gigs of RAM on this. It's DDR4 3200 Patriot RAM. That comes in 2 sticks. And I have a question about that. Yeah. So recently, my friend of mine sent me 16 gigs of RAM. He actually gave it to me at PAX. He was like, here, to up my total RAM in my gaming PC to 32 gigs. So I had to add it. Now, it's at different speeds. So obviously, the speed is now maxing out at the lowest for the highest for the lowest card. So now it's all 2400 across the board, but it's 32 gigs. So for this having 2 16 gig cards, obviously Tyler can add more, but would there be a difference in performance if, say, we went with 4 8 gig cards? 4 8 gig sticks of RAM.
Yeah, so there would be a difference in performance. It's not going to be too noticeable as far as like frames in a game go. I wouldn't even know if it'd be 10 frames, but technically it will perform a little better if there's 4 8s, because that's using the dual channel of both channels on the RAM. So it'll be a little bit faster, but going this route is what I would do personally, because you've got room to grow if you need to. If you obviously had 4 8s, you'd have to switch them all out if you were going to upgrade, whereas here you can just throw 2 more in. Yeah.
So otherwise, you're not going to really see a huge performance difference then.
Yeah, not going to see a huge performance difference. If you ran some mem tests and something to specifically measure it, you would see a little bit, but nothing that's going to affect your game.
Gotcha. Well, that is good to know. As we can see now, we got Christian mounting the board into the box, and I always ask this just because it's really important, especially for people who might be trying to build their own PC or maybe need to swap out a motherboard at some point. Big points of order in how you're looking to attach a motherboard that is you're going into a case like that. What are some advice you can give there, Christian?
See, what I like to do is, I know we mentioned this earlier, I like to build the motherboard before I put it in the case. It just gives me all the room to work with, not bumping my arms inside of this case like I'm kind of doing right now. Excuse me. So build your motherboard outside of the case as much as you can. CPU, RAM, M.2 retention kit, and then throw it into the case, start screwing it in. Then you can start plugging in everything.
Ah, the joys of the packaging.
I know, I can hear it too. There we go.
Pulling it out there. All right. So that's going in there. It's a very clean looking motherboard. I feel like the only things that'll really shine in this is going to be those heatsink plates. You get these two little pieces of reflection in there. I know that, yes, while we have not officially confirmed the winner yet, that is still going on, but it looks like RTFC COD or RTF COD may very well have been messaged. So we're waiting to get the confirmation on that. Nicole will, of course, is running that, and we'll make that announcement as soon as we know what's going on with that. All right. So now we're getting our final. Just getting the final mounts in place for the board.
Yeah. So well, he's got his mounts in right now, and he's plugging in his front panel there. So that's going to be his power button, his light to show that it is on, hard drive light, show if the hard drive is being activated, all that type of stuff. This case is a little unique with mounting this board. So some M boards are a little bit longer than others. This is one of the kinds that is longer. So there's kind of an extra little tray he had to throw in there to mount it.
Gotcha. And one thing I love, and this is true about all the CLX cases, just because they're genius in the way they're designed. I like them the way they're designed because I have one that's not like this, and it's not from you guys, sadly. So if you notice, there's a back section, as we're looking right now, there's a back section to the left of where the I/O ports are. This is an empty section that helps not only with airflow, but it provides different access points for the system. What are the two access points on this size of a case?
That's right. So that hole at the top there that you can see through pretty well, that's where our power supply is going to mount, and that's obviously behind the motherboard tray where the motherboard mounts to. And then below that is where we can install any 3.5-inch drives as well. Probably familiar with that on the larger O11s that we've done, where they have the trays that come out. This is a little bit different design, but still has the trays. They're just not hot swappable.
Okay. And it's a nice feature to have that power supply be able to be in the top. You know, heat rises when it gets warm. It's not going to be potentially heating anything else up. And I did see, I don't know if it's still out, the filter. Let's talk about the filters on this and how this is going to work with the airflow and design, since we are going with a 120 AIO. Yeah,
so we've got the bottom filter right here. It just slides in like this and then fill a tray. And it just comes out that easy to clean. And then we've obviously got a magnetic one on the top. And then for the back panel, we have vents as well. You can see them through, yep, you can see them there. And then we've got a magnetic filter on the back of each of these. So these are just, you pop out, put them back on, and that's it. So really easy.
Those magnetic filters are absolutely genius. I will praise them every show because of the fact that they have always kept my PCs like just immaculately clean on the inside. It's wild how well they work.
Yeah, they're great. It's kind of crazy that it took so long for it to become a regular thing.
Right? It's like, how did nobody think of this beforehand? I think probably tech companies were so concerned about putting a magnet of any kind anywhere near anything. It was just like, nope, let's just not. That's a bad idea, no. And then come to find out, hey, guess what? This is actually pretty lit.
It's fine, yeah.
Nice. All right, so let's talk a little bit about, because you and I were talking before the show started about I have a push-pull, and I was thinking that for a little while that I had a two. So explain what the sizes when we talk 120s, 240s, or 360s. What determines that number on an AIO or an all-in-one cooling system?
Yeah, so that's going to determine how many fans you can mount to that radiator. Now, that's not including a push-pull method, but just the actual length of the radiator. So this is a 120 you can see right here. We do have our fan already mounted to it, so a 120 fan there. If it's a 240, it would obviously be 1 down with 2 and 360 with 3.
Yep. And for some reason, even after we've talked about this so many times, I was thinking because I had 2 fans on my radiator that it might be a 240, and then I looked at it, I'm like, no, this is it's a single square, so it's obviously just a 120 radiator with a push-pull on it, which does increase the functionality of the cooling, but it still only has 1 square to run through before it heads back over to the processor to cool down. So, and of course, this board, our friend Tyler in Texas has an AMD Ryzen 5. It's a 5600G, 6-core, 12-thread, unlocked desktop processor with the graphics. Now, I'm going to ask this, is going to sound stupid, but I've always wondered whether it's Radeon or Radon.
Yeah, it's Radeon, yep.
Radeon. Because Radon's the thing that you don't want to have in your house.
It won't hurt you if you're too close. Yeah.
Awesome. What can you tell me about this processor that makes it so unique?
Yeah, so this is a 6-core, 12-thread processor. It has multi-threading, which means 12 threads or 2 threads per core. Has a base clock of 3.9 gigahertz and a turbo boost up to 4.4. And so what that means is it's going to run at that 4.4 if what you're doing is demanding it, and it has enough cooling. So just kind of depends what game you're playing. You know, it'll try to be at that 4.4 as much as possible while still operating safely.
So with this 120 cooler, now I've heard, and you can probably confirm whether this is true or not, I've heard that AMD's run a little bit cooler than, say, Intel's.
Yeah, they do now. So back in the day, it was flipped. Intel was a lot cooler than AMD, but now AMD is running cooler than Intel.
So do you think a 120 is going to be enough to keep this cool in heavy gaming situations?
Yeah, for this build right here, we're not overclocking. This 120 will do fine. I've actually got the stock cooler that comes with most of these processors, depending on which model you get. So I can show that real quick. Just the stock air cooler here.
Oh, wow.
Pretty standard short aluminum block here. This doesn't have a copper core. Some of the higher end ones, like if this was a Ryzen 7 and it came with an air cooler, it would have a taller aluminum part with a copper core. And then just a fan here. So this 120 will perform a lot better than this will.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, that's a 120 AIO cooler. That's an all-in-one liquid-cooled system that is self-contained, as opposed to an open system, which we saw some open systems that were gorgeous at PAX, and it was neat to see it in person because we talked about it a lot, but it's not often I get to see an actual open loop system. So can you go through again? I know we ask this question all the time, but can you go through again the difference between an open loop and a closed loop system?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you mentioned, this is an AIO or an all-in-one. This is a closed loop system, meaning it is just like this. There's no parts that we're going to have to open to put any fluid in. You just get this and install it. Where if we had an open loop, we would be either using soft tubes or hard tubes and custom bending those, and there'd be a special radiator or a distribution plate, something like that, where we actually fill ourselves, and then you have the system run, get the air out, add more fluid. It's a lot of maintenance. Obviously it looks really cool, but a lot of maintenance there. You do get really good temperatures with the open loop as well, just because you have so much fluid and so much cooling going on.
Nice. So with that being said, we've also, so that's going to go on top. Now there is an upgrade that I did see that Tyler purchased, or Tyler selected for his build, and that is the upgraded CLX FLUXX thermal compound, which we offer as part of our upgrade services. You can choose that, and in that same area on the website is also the option for overclocking your CPU or your GPU, which neither of those were selected, but the compound was. Tell us a little bit about CLX FLUXX and why it's important to use on your processor.
Yeah, so most AIOs or air coolers themselves, I already cleaned this AIO off, but you might have seen me doing that earlier. This copper, this is the plate that's going to actually touch the CPU. So this comes from the factory with some thermal paste on it. It's obviously just you know, a standard thermal paste, nothing crazy. This air cooler, let me pull this back out again because I can show it as well. This air cooler even has like a nice little circle there of thermal paste you can see. So what we're doing when we're using our FLUXX is we're wiping that off and then using a higher end thermal paste that's going to give us better temperatures. It is more expensive, but in the long run it's obviously going to keep your CPU cooler, give you better temp, so definitely worth it in my opinion.
As far as keeping, you know, standard procedure for ensuring that your thermal paste lasts as long as possible, are there usage recommendations you can make as far as, like, you know, whether or not you're turning your PC off, how you're running it, that would elongate that lifespan?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend turning your computer off, obviously, when you're not using it, or just putting it in sleep mode, something where it's not, you know, just running hot. But the thermal paste is going to last you a really long time. So either one, whether it's the standard or the higher end stuff, it is going to last a while. But obviously, if you do any maintenance on your machine and you take your cooler off, whether it's air cooler, liquid cooler, anything like that, definitely wipe that off and apply more thermal paste if you've got it.
So would you say if I've had a PC running 24/7 for 5 years, that's probably bad?
It's probably, if it's working, I'm not going to say it's bad, but if it's starting to give you some issues, that would be a good place to look first. That thermal paste is probably going to be like yellow or brown. We see it a lot of time. So, you know, just from heating up and cooling down. And it's almost more of a glue, like, I don't know, it's like a syrupy almost. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I my gaming PC gets turned off every night, but my media PC is always on. And it is air cooled, not liquid cooled, and I'm beginning to think that maybe I have pushed my little Ryzen 5 to its maximum capacity. I should probably check on that eventually.
You know, if you do, it would be interesting to like just do some games or something on there that is a little bit tasking on the CPU, and look at the temperatures, and then once you take it off and reapply thermal paste, look at the temperatures again. There's a lot you can do just from taking that CPU cooler off and cleaning out all the dust in the fan itself. You know, there's a lot of life you can give back to your machine that way.
Yeah, like right now, like, I don't think my CPU now, because I'm not doing this I'm not gaming on this machine, it's just for production. It's only running 30% of my CPU, which is good.
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, it's kind of a workhorse for, as a processor goes, which is similar to this one. I mean, it's a 5600G. And I believe mine is a 3600, a Ryzen 5 3600X.
Okay, yeah.
Well, so what does the X mean?
So I believe the X typically means it's unlocked, which means you can overclock it. However, I do believe this 5600G can be overclocked as well. Might need checked on that, but I believe that's the case.
Got it.
But that's typically kind of with Ryzen, you know, they use X, Intel uses K. It's kind of that designator.
Okay. Perfect. And we're getting the top screwed in there. Christian, what exactly are you screwing into the top at the moment?
These are going to be my top exhaust fans.
Okay. And Samantha, hi. Yes, you get to witness a PC build live. This is today is an unusual one just because we usually do this on Tuesdays. We were all traveling yesterday, coming back from PAX in Seattle. So normally this show is every Tuesday, starting at 11 a.m. Pacific. That's 2 p.m. Eastern, and we build out custom builds every single week, teaching anybody who's viewing about the difference in hardware, the difference in software, how to build it, techniques, and how to handle the technology as you're doing it. So airflow wise, we've got how many fans do we have on the bottom? Just 2?
We've got 3 on the bottom.
Got it.
Yep,
okay.
So we've got 3 intakes on the bottom, 3 exhausts at the top, and then we'll have 1 exhaust out the back that's mounted to our AIO right now.
Got it. And of course, I have personally dubbed this the Dark Knight build. It is all black, and with black fans and everything. This is going to be basically a ninja machine.
Yeah, we got
never see it.
Black fans, black RAM. Yeah, this is pretty cool. It's nice to have a little change of pace every now and then, you know.
Yeah. I know I had a safe trip coming back up, Samantha. We drove back down. I drove back down with some friends, but I rode up to PAX on the train on Amtrak, which was nice. To sit there and play my Steam Deck for a few hours and do nothing whatsoever important.
Oh, that's awesome. How long of a train ride is that?
So I was on an express, so it only took about 3 hours and 20 minutes, 3 and a half hours.
That's cool.
The standard trip time is usually between 3.5 and 4 hours if you're on if you're on the train that comes up from LA.
Okay.
Then that one, the Empire Builder, that one it's a bigger train. It's got all the sleeping cars with people who are on multi-day trips, and that's a little slower of a train. It's got a lot more weight to it. The Cascade's a single decker train as opposed to a double decker. But I love trains. I think trains are fun. You know, especially on the big double deckers, the touring trains that are multi-state. You know, go to the coast. They'll take you from Portland to Chicago. Those trains are great because you have 2 floors and the seats are huge. You got great windows, giant lounge car with wraparound windows. It's nice. I dig it.
I haven't been on one in such a long time. There's a little town just north of us here, Newton, that's got a train station there. So that's where everybody goes if you're taking the train anywhere.
Yeah. Samantha says all black. I know, mind blowing, huh? That is so cool. I've mainly been seeing all white builds, even one for myself on my gold board. Can't wait to see this black build completed. I absolutely, completely agree. I've always had, and this is interesting because it's been happening a lot recently. I've always had black PCs. My keyboard is black, my mouse is black, and so ironically, hey, City, hello, City coming in from Australia, nice. I have, like, Logitech sent me a white version of the G502, which is, as I'm looking at things, my desk is very dark.
Oh.
Like, everything seems to be themed black except for my MacBook, which is silver. But I know the build that I've put together is going to be on a white case, and it's going to be very bright. I'm super excited for it. A City says, if Australian states didn't have different grade rails, I'd love to take a trip to PAX on one. Yeah, you know what? I didn't even think about whether or not we could have taken the train from Perth. But is there a consumer travel train in Australia? I don't know that there is. If there was, I certainly didn't find it. Most of my furniture in my room is black. Right. Yep. And that's what I was noticing. I'm really loving seeing so many different PC makers and part providers coming up with different colors, because CLX, you carry white builds, white frames, black frames, and silver frames.
Yeah, we've got a lot of selection there, and I mean, we've done quite a few white builds too on this show, and those, it's just cool. We got it all, so it's really nice sometimes to have just a fully RGB system that's just like glowing, looks like the Holy Grail or something, and then we get one like this that's just like all blacked out. You know, it's kind of cool.
Yeah. It's definitely a neat balance to it. And of course, anybody who saw pictures and photos from PAX knows that the Sakura edition build had that beautiful white and pink with the blossoms across the front of it. It was gorgeous, and I believe that's actually going to be going on sale this week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe it's live,
which is great. And of course, we'll talk about that in a second on the web page. One thing I wanted to just jump into. So right now we've got Christian. What you doing over there? I know you've been playing with cords while we've been chatting.
Yeah. So right now I'm hooking the all-in-one pump to the CPU, the retention kit, those pegs we were talking about earlier. This is what attaches the water pump to your CPU block, or excuse me, your CPU. Over here talking about open loops now.
Yeah. Christian's been building a lot of open loops recently too.
That's all I've been doing.
Oh, I'm so excited for us to do one of those on the show. That's going to be so wild.
That'll be really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I would be fascinated by it. Okay, so what hold on. How is... Why exactly is Nicole getting punished by Nightbot? So find Nicole here is she is our head of marketing for CLX, and she designed that whole booth at for our pod at Intel Gaming Days. I've just Nightbot just slapped her on the wrist. Like, what? What do you think you're doing, Nightbot? Do you know who you're talking to?
Nobody's safe from Nightbot.
Nicole's over here yelling at her screen, do you know who I am? I mean, I would be.
We'll unplug you.
It's thoroughly uncalled for, Nightbot.
I'll do that later.
15 yards for unsportsmanlike conduct. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about the cable management that you're going through right now. We've got some rubber grommets at the top on the inside of the case that help with routing things through. But you try, hold on, let me see if I can do it. Because copy. Why are you not a mod? That's the weirdest thing ever. Let me paste that. Boop, boop. There we go. There we go. All right, CLXgaming.com/CLX special editions. Check out that link so you can see all the different editions that we do. And we have a ton, we have a bunch of really cool stuff. Right? Nightbot will always choose violence.chaos, one of my mods from my channel, who knows this very well. knows this very well.
See, Nightbot will always choose chaos, is how he said. That's awesome.
Always choose violence every time.
Okay,
.chaos it knows that personally.
Oh, man.
So we always point out the necessity for, and you can see those 3 top fans right there. Everybody is, with that shot. For cooling, we want that ventilation, and what are some big tips that you use that help you get through the cable management side of it so quickly?
Yeah, so I like to break up my cable management in segments, basically. So let's see, turn this around for you guys. So before I even put in my power supply, any of that stuff, well, I will put in my CPU cable first. But besides that, no power supply, no other cables. I'm just going to work with my case cables, my front panel, 2.0, 3.0, HD audio. Those are going to be these cables right here. So I like to get these cables and my fans all tidied up, get these tied up, and then I'll install my power supply and get the rest of the cables in, get the motherboard all plugged up.
Zeke Corp in the house. Hello, Zeke. Zeke was also there last weekend at PAX West. Good to see you, my friend. Now, we did mention that as you're pulling these through, you've been talking about getting everything hooked up correctly. The power supply, I believe, is the last thing that goes in, and then you pull and run everything else out there. If we want, we can talk about that power supply real quick while you're doing that. Yeah. It is a 750 watt EVGA SuperNova SFX 80 plus gold.
Yeah, so
yeah, tell me about this.
Yeah, so what's really cool about this is the SFX. What I think is really cool about this, it's a 750 watt, and this is it in my hand. I mean, it's so tiny.
It's tiny.
Like I could throw this at Jason over there, it'd be good. No, but it is fully modular, which is really nice. We'll get it right here. There we go. So you can see all of our outputs here, or our inputs, sorry. And the modular design is just going to let us use only the cables that we need, which on a small build like that is huge. It's going to make Christian's life easier. It's going to help airflow. It's just going to provide us with a cleaner look as well.
This is one of those things where you don't have to use it if you don't need it. And as somebody I bought a pre-built from another company, and the thing that I noticed when I tried to pull the back off was that it is a non-modular design, and there's just cables everywhere. They're just stuffed and jammed in places, and there's nothing hooked up to it. No need for them, but they're there. So non-modulars are very nice. It's not an RGB, so again, it's staying on theme. It's staying on brand. It's that Dark Knight style. But it has also got a fan, and for its size, which I'm impressed with for a 750 watt device, it's going to sit at the top of that case behind the motherboard. It's going to have its own access to airflow, and it'll stay cool up there, and its heat will not be generated to go past anything else. It's just going to go right up out the top.
That's right. Yeah, it's with this case design, the back panel that's gonna be covering up this has a lot of mesh, and there's gonna be right above this fan. So it's just gonna pull in fresh air and blow it out the back of the power supply. None of that air will be getting into the system.
Perfect. Perfect. And that airflow is also very important when you're talking about how you hook up and how you organize those cables that you can see Christian putting together right now. It's always imperative because you want to make sure you've got it isolated down so it's the least amount of how do I want to say this? You've got the least amount of blocks in your airflow, your line of airflow. So as we can see right there, it's just pulling that all together. Zip ties are of course the primary use of these things, and we've given this advice before, but just to make clear, sometimes you want to upgrade things on your PC. Sometimes you need to replace something on your PC. So when you do pull the back off and you notice that all these cables are very organized in a very specific way, take a picture with your cell phone. Everybody's got one now. Just take a picture of how it's laid out, how it's banded together, so that you can put everything back together the same way that you found it, because that's going to help maintain that functionality, and the fluidity of the airflow, and it's just going to kind of keep everything nice and tight. Is there anything other than zip ties that a person could use, or that you would suggest them using?
I would definitely suggest using zip ties. Yeah. So this case with the cables that for where they're mounted in this case, like right when you open it up, they've got Velcro straps. You can see right here. And we take those out and just remove them. But if you're building the PC on your own, you don't have access to like a whole bag of zip ties like we do. These will work just fine, and they're obviously reusable. Whereas zip tie, once it's down, if you cut it, you got to get a new one.
Right.
Cases and power supplies are both going to come with some zip ties in them as well. They're a little shorter and thicker than we like, so we don't use those. We've had these nice, long, thin ones. You can kind of bend them around, and that way you can get them through a loop if you need to. It gives you enough length as well to just get them in tight places. So
nice.
Long, skinny zip ties are what I'd recommend. But yeah.
Let's take a look at, I'm just messaging Jason. I want to take a look at the website, because one of the things that I've always found interesting, and this is true, I think, for most people who are watching, not everybody understands how the hardware functions, what hardware works with what hardware, whether or not you've got RAM that's going to function, that's going to be able to be carried by this motherboard, and whether or not the motherboard is going to even meet the needs of the processor. Well, let's take a look. So let's take a look at the website for all of your gaming needs. All you have to do is head on over to clxgaming.com. Whether you're into graphic design, whether you're into video production, content creation, or just gaming, you have the option of finding the device that works just for you. We have pre-built systems in every different form factor available, and we can also help you find your system that works just for you. And in the process of this, don't worry if you're not an expert. It's okay. We've got a built-in conflict resolution system for this that is unlike any other. So you'll notice that you can't click add to cart on the device, because at the top it says solve conflicts. That way it shows you if you don't have something that's compatible, we'll give you the solutions to ensure that you've got everything working and your build comes out just as you need. It's wonderful. So as you can see, power supplies, motherboards, you name it. And we've got all of this here. On top of that, which you can choose special editions, customize it to meet your brand, to be on brand with your channel, or to be on brand with your company. Maybe you're an architect that wants to make sure that this is shiny and flashy in front of your clients. It's a great idea. Pick everything that you want right here. We have colorized RGB lighting and devices for the entire inside of the case. You can also choose to get your device upgraded through overclocking. We can overclock your CPU and your GPU for just a small cost. We can also, as you saw earlier, change out your thermal paste as well with something that's going to last a little bit longer. So you name it, we've got it. We even carry peripherals from a multitude of different companies. Find your mouse, your keyboard. We even have a gaming chair that you can get. It's all available right here on our site. So again, if you're looking for something for school, or just to upgrade, or to get into the next generation of gaming, head on over to clxgaming.com and let us help you find the right PC for your future. Bam! Did it. Okay.
It's beautiful.
Right. Zip tie ASMR. Right. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm gonna be honest. So as a kid, I always liked it. And my dad would yell at me because my biological father was a biotechnical engineer, and so he had, when he was working on medical stuff, had zip ties, and I would go out there and I liked the sound, so I would put it through and like that, but then it'd get stuck.
Yep.
He finally gave me one. He got so far because like I'd done this to 30 of them, not realizing that he couldn't undo it. Right? I didn't know how to do it. I figured he could. And so he showed me with a toothpick how to lift the little thing up and pull it back out. And then finally, I just got to the point where I cut it off and then just sat it in there and just kept stringing it through. And I'd sit there and watch cartoons, Darkwing Duck, as I'm pulling the zip tie through until my mom finally took it away. And that was not a kind conversation. But yeah, it's very loud. Sorry. It's like bubble wrap. You can't see bubble wrap that's now not being used and not pop a few of them.
Right.
If you can manage that kind of stress, you don't have that instinct. I'm literally scared. Now, one thing I am noticing on the back of this, on the back of the I/O, is we do have one of that. I believe that is a old school mouse or keyboard connector. And I say old school, but because I don't remember the name of the port.
It's PS2, yeah. PS2.
There we go. Yeah.
Yep, and this
That
one
is not
is
a PlayStation 2, people.
Yeah, no, not a PlayStation, that's for sure. This one is split. You can see it's split between purple and green. You know, they used to be only green was mouse and purple was keyboard, I think. And
right,
so
that's
this
right.
is a special one. It can do a mouse or a keyboard if you're still using PS2. So, yep.
And to be honest, I don't like. I still have an old machine upstairs that no longer works that has both of those on it. But traditionally, I'm not even sure that they even sell keyboards or mice that aren't USB.
Yeah, I haven't seen a new one that's
Pretty
PS2
sure.
in a long time. Yeah, I think the motherboard manufacturers just like to put those on there in case, you know, you're just upgrading a system for some extremely old machine, I guess, where you got to clean out the mouse ball and all that, you know.
God, those were a mess.
Yeah.
So you did mount into the graphics card. So let's talk about that. It is a RTX 3060 from NVIDIA. It is a gigabyte version. So this has 12 gigs of RAM on it, which is different than the 3080 Ti, which only comes with 8 gigs of RAM. What's the difference? Why 12 gigs, and how does this compare?
Yeah, so this, like you said, has 12 gigs, so we've got 4 more gigs. And that's going to refer to, obviously, the motherboard chips that are on this card. So what we were kind of talking about a little bit earlier, too, is the PCB of the cards. This one, they decided to add more RAM to it, and the bus is smaller, and I believe that's why they added the RAM.
Okay. Because it needs to, I guess it needs to match, so it's, so you've got matching channels on there. So how do channels work when it comes to memory?
Yeah, so you can think of a channel like a lane on a highway is the way that I would describe it. I believe that's how it was explained to me. So the more lanes you have, the more cars that can go on, and the cars are information at this point, or signals. So the more channels you have, the more information that can go. So
awesome.
I like that analogy. It makes a lot of sense. So.
That actually makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see here. All right, as we're getting this in here now, I see that we've got the braid. Now, those look like those are braided cable bands. Does that come direct from? Is that included with the case, or do those come from someplace else?
These are coming with the power supply itself. So they do have a nice braiding around there with some heat wrap around the ends to keep them all close together. So these are the factory cables that come with them. These ones are great for this build, being black and everything. I believe the last build we did, we had a cable mod sleeved cable kit that we replaced the cables with.
Yeah, I remember that. So I'm over here looking at all sorts of messages about things. So now we're taking a look at the back. We've got, there's multiple different trays available. Christian, how many slots are still usable on that motherboard with that 3060 now installed?
Oh, let me take a look. Looks like we still got the 2 available slots available. You could Could sneak a small network card in there, something in that one slot.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you've got the full-length one at the bottom for a sound card, you know, anything like that, stream capture card.
So there's still opportunities to upgrade this device, and of course on the back there, that lower panel. Let's go over that one more time. What's that lower panel below the power supply unit?
Below the power supply, so right here is where your mechanical drive is going to go in. So that's obviously open and free in this build. So if the customer does have a mechanical drive from a previous PC, or they just decide they want to have an extra storage drive and order that later, they can throw it in there.
Yeah.
I think
We're good to go?
Yeah.
All right. The Dark
right.
Knight is complete.
Ready.
All right, well, we'll start getting the side panels back on and the top panel. There you go. Just a tiny little screw.
So easy to lose.
It is. It is.
All right, so before it powers up, let's take a look. Once again, this is for Tyler in Tyler, Texas. No, he's not in Tyler, he's in Texas. I just giggle about that. So what we've put together, this is our I'm calling it the Dark Knight build. It's an all black build. It's great. This comes, of course, it is our Scarab build, and it is a Scarab O11 dynamic mini MicroTower. It's black. We've got a ASRock B550M AC micro ATX board with an AMD Ryzen 5 5600G hex core processor. Obviously, we've upgraded the thermal paste with that 120 AIO all-in-one cooler. This has got a GeForce RTX 3060 12 gig graphics card in there that's going to be assisted by two 16 gig Patriot DDR4 3200 sticks of RAM. That's a total of 32 gigs, plus you've got that CLX Quench 120 closed liquid cooler that's going to be on top of there, and a 750 watt EVGA SuperNova 80 plus gold power supply, and 7 standard 120 millimeter case fans. Let's take a look at this beautiful guy and see how it powers up. It's so dark.
It is.
It's so dark. I like it. I like it. It's very different.
Should be silent and deadly here. Alrighty. Here we go.
Let's see.
And we're on.
That's it.
That's it. It's on.
It's on. It's on and it's running. You can hear it. There's no lights for us to see it, but there we go. This is going to be perfect. It's not going to pull attention. It might be, you know, there's all sorts of different reasons why you might want an all black design. There it is. There it is. Peel that off.
That was for you. It was hanging and I couldn't resist it. I thought this might give us a little bit better shot on the inside. I know it. Yeah, it is dark in there. This looks great though.
Yeah.
It's super quiet. The fans that we use for this are some really nice standard fans. So.
Yeah. Well, and that's, you know, I think I've noticed that kind of across the board with all of the builds. They're all very quiet. So this is great. Once again, congratulations, Tyler. We've got your build. It'll be sent out to you once it goes to the testing. Before we go, I want to just touch on that because we didn't touch on it yet. What happens now with the build? Where does it go from here?
All right, so from here it's going to go into our testing and integration department, where that's going to get put on a rack, and we're going to get it loaded up to our network. We're going to load the OS, any games. I'm not sure. It looks like he might have picked a couple games, picked Chrome. So we'll load the games, the browser they want. And then once that's all loaded, we're going to stress test it for 12 hours, make sure it passed that stress test, and if it does, it'll go over to QA, where it'll get a final inspection and then ship out.
Awesome. Cool. And of course, this will come with a 1-year warranty at standard. That comes with 1 year for parts, lifetime labor, and lifetime technical support as well. So with that being said, any last final thoughts?
I don't think so. We're excited for next week. So
Yeah, very excited.
Next week's going to be a lot of fun. Next week, we return to our standard normal broadcast time at Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern with Sonic Foundry. CLX Gaming's Foundry Live build show, where we take you inside building a custom PC from the ground up. On behalf of everyone here at CLX, on behalf of Christian and Paul, I'm DJ BluePDX. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time right here.
thanks, guys.
Thank you.